The movie starts at MIT. During a mathematics class, Professor Lambo walks into the class to teach his students. He tells them about an advanced mathematical equation, which he has written on the board. He informs his students that anyone who solves the question would be recognized by the MIT newspaper. Meanwhile, a 20-year-old genius named Will Hunting works at the university as a janitor. Will starts his cleaning duty and sees the question on the board. He looks at the question for a while and decides to leave. After a hectic day at work, Will meets one of his friends, Chucky, at a bar and they have fun. However, he leaves the bar early as he is tired from the day's work. Upon getting home, he enters his room and solves the mathematical equation on his mirror. The next day, he arrives at work and writes the answer on the board. Later that day, Will hangs out with his three friends, Chucky, Billy, and Morgan. Concurrently, the MIT alumnus reunion takes place on a Saturday and Professor Lambo is at the school alongside his classmates. Not long after, his students arrive and they tell him they cannot wait to find out the person that solved the equation. Lambo is surprised to hear this. He leaves the party immediately and goes to the classroom. After observing the questions on the board, Lambo realizes that the answer on the board is correct. Elsewhere, Will and his friends watch some kids play on the field. They spot an old classmate of Will, who used to bully him back in elementary school. Shortly after, Will becomes uncomfortable and he decides to leave the game with his friends. On their way home, they spot Will's bully on the street, and Will decides to get his revenge on him. They get into a fight and Will dominates the fight. He continues to hit him, but the police step in and stop the fight. They arrest Will and they take him to the police station. On the new day of the week, Lambo's class is filled up, as everyone is eager to find out the student that solved the complex question. Just as curious as his students, Lambo asks the person to stand up, but no one stands up. Lambo continues to wait, but he does not realize that Will is not his student. Lambo decides to write another equation on the board, which took Lambo and his colleagues 2 years to solve. He issues a challenge and states that the mysterious student should be able to solve the question. Later on, Chucky goes to pick up Will from the station that day, and Will informs him he will be put on trial next week. Later that evening, Will returns to his cleaning duty at the university. He discovers the new question on the board and begins to solve it. Lambo walks in on him just as he solves the question, causing Will to run away. Despite his efforts to catch Will, Lambo is unable to find out who he is. He comes back to look at Will's answer and he is astonished when he discovers that Will is right once again. Late at night, Will and his friends visit a bar filled with Harvard students as it is close to the university. Chucky spots 2 girls and he admires them. He moves closer to Skylar and introduces himself. Trying to impress her, Chucky lies to Skylar that they attend history class together. Meanwhile, Clark, a student of Harvard, sees through Chucky's deception and tries to embarrass him. He asks Chucky to tell him some economic histories. Will decides to narrate all the histories, in order to save his friend from being embarrassed. Will goes further and tells Clark the textbooks he reads from, embarrassing him in the process. Impressed by his actions, Skylar walks up to Will and gives him her number, hoping they hang out for coffee anytime. She then leaves the bar and Will is happy about getting her phone number. Determined to find Will, Lambo and his assistant Tom locate Will's agent and try to get Will's number as Will didn't return to work that day. Will's agent gives them the card of Will's parole officer and they leave. Lambo attends Will's court proceeding and Will tries to defend himself using the knowledge of the law books he read. Unconvinced, the proceeding judge looks at Will's files and discovers that he has been prosecuted severally. He also finds out that Will spent all his childhood in different foster homes. The judge finds him guilty and sets his bail at $50,000, which Will is unable to afford. In prison, Will calls Skylar, and they bond over the phone. Soon after, Lambo visits Will at the prison and informs him that the judge has placed Will in his care on 2 conditions. The first condition is that Will has to meet him for mathematics at least twice a week and he also has to meet a therapist. Will accepts the mathematics lesson but refuses to meet with a therapist. He is released under Lambo's care and Lambo schedules Will to meet a therapist called Henry. However, Will mocks Henry, causing the therapist to leave in anger. Shortly after, Will also meets A.H. hypnotherapist, and although he pretends to be hypnotized, he begins to laugh, annoying the hypnotherapist in the process. After witnessing both events, Lambo realizes the only person who is capable of counseling Will is Sean, Lambo's roommate back in college. Afterward, Lambo meets Sean and he tries to convince Sean to counsel Will as they both grew up under the same conditions. Lambo manages to convince Sean and he agrees to meet Will. During their first meeting, Will comments on all of Sean's books and paintings. making demeaning comments about his paintings, in order to upset Sean, but he keeps laughing at Will's comments. However, Will crosses the line after stating Sean married the wrong wife, and Sean becomes furious. It turns out Sean's wife, Nancy, is dead, and Sean cannot bear to hear any negative words about his wife. Sean manages to calm down after threatening Will, and they begin the therapy session. After their therapy session, Will leaves the room, and Lambo is surprised after Sean requests to meet Will again. That night, Sean starts recalling his conversation with Will. Elsewhere, Will and Skylar eventually meet up, and Skylar informs him that she intends to attend medical school at Stanford after graduating. The date goes on as they bond, and they end the date with a kiss. During his next therapy session, Will is shocked to see Sean, as he has never had the same therapist twice. Sean takes him out and they sit down, watching the swans. Sean tells him that all Will knows is what he reads in books, but he does not experience them. Sean further states that although Will reads about paintings, he has never seen a professional painting. He knows about love, but he has never been in a vulnerable position because of love. Sean confesses that he sees Will as a little kid who knows nothing. Sean reveals Will wants to talk to him, then he is available, but if not, then he should leave. After their conversation, Sean leaves him and walks away. The conversation changes Will's life. He goes out with his friends and tries to call Skylar, but he is too scared to talk to her. After multiple therapy sessions, it is a silent game between Sean and Will, as none of them wants to say anything to each other, and Sean insists he will not talk first. In the next therapy session, Will tells Sean about Skylar. He confesses that although Skylar seems perfect, he doesn't want to get too close to her and realize she is imperfect. However, Sean tells him that being imperfect is true beauty. He tells Will that although his wife used to fart in her sleep, it is those imperfections he loves most about her. After the therapy session, Will goes to Skylar's room and asks her out. Skylar says she has an assignment pending and postpones the hangout till the next day. Will leaves, but he comes back with her assignment in hand. He insists they have their date today, and they eventually watch a horse racing game. Their horse wins and they are very excited. During the hangout, Skylar asks Will about his family, and Will tells him he is from South Boston. He also reveals that he has 12 brothers. During the next therapy session with Sean, Will asks Sean if he regrets meeting his wife due to the heartbreak he is feeling after her death. However, Sean tells him the exact day he met his wife. Will is surprised that he knows the exact day, but it turns out that day was the historical Game 5. He said he and his friends stayed over the night to struggle for tickets, and they eventually got them. But a few hours into the game, he is at a bar when Nancy, his wife, walks in. Seeing her for the first time, she radiated everywhere, and he missed his historical game just to be with her. He insists that he does not regret a day out of the days he was married to her, nor does he regret a day out of the days he gave up on his career to stay with her on the sickbed while she battled with cancer. Sean's story encourages Will to take things forward with Skylar. One day when they were making out, Skylar insists on visiting his home to meet his brothers and friends. The next day, he takes Skylar to hang out with his friends, and Chucky is shocked a Harvard student like Skylar could be so friendly. The following day, Lambo meets Sean at a bar and asks Sean if he has spoken to Will about his future because his phone is buzzing with job offers. Sean states Will isn't ready to take any job because it will run everything they had worked for if Will is forced to do this. Lambo, however, tells Sean that he has sent Will for a job interview and he is about to get the job. Unknown to Lambo, Will sent Chucky instead to the interview. Chucky ruins the interview and collects $75 from the company before leaving. Meanwhile, Will hangs out with Skylar, and he wants to help her with one of her assignments, but she rejects his request. Although Skylar is amazed at Will's ability to remember everything he reads and wishes she was like hi. They end their date with a kiss and make love to each other. The next morning, Skylar asks Will to follow her to California, prompting him to ask her why she wants him. He tells her that one day, she would wake up in California and regret the decision to take him because her dream is to go to Stanford and marry any of the trust fund kids like her. Skylar breaks down in tears and states that it is not her fault that she is rich after inheriting her father's property. She asks him to be vulnerable to her, but Will gets angry as he is scared of commitment. He confesses to her that he doesn't have any brothers and he is an orphan. He confesses that he grew up in different foster homes, and they maltreated him. He decides to break up with her and tells her he doesn't love her. The next day, he takes a mathematical theorem to Lambo. Just as he is about to leave, Lambo asks about the job meeting, and he reveals that he sent someone there on his behalf. Will then burns the paper that contains the mathematical theorem and leaves Lambo's office. Will has a job interview with the NSA and he rejects the job. He tells Sean why he rejected the job, and Sean asks him if he has a soulmate, someone he can confide in. He tells Sean his soulmates are the authors of the books he reads. Sean explains that he needs to have that connection with someone special. Sean gets tired of Will's antics and sends him out of his office on the last day of school. Skylar tells Will over the phone that she loves him, but he doesn't answer her. Skylar leaves Harvard, and Will continues to work at the construction sites. One day, Chucky asks about Skylar, and Will informs him he has broken up with Skylar. Chucky asks him when he would be done with his therapy session and get a job. However, Will claims that he is not interested in any job offer because he wants to live with his friends forever. A disappointed Chucky states that he would kill Will if he is still with them in 20 years as he has an opportunity every one of them would kill for. However, it would be a disgrace if he loses such an opportunity. Chucky confesses that his best times in the morning are the moments he stops at Will's house before knocking on the door. Chucky reveals that he keeps hoping Will would not be around because he would have left to chase his dreams. Meanwhile, Sean and Lambo are in Sean's office arguing. Lambo claims that Sean wants to make Will a failure like him. He further states that if Will doesn't utilize the chances he is given now, he would lose it all just like Sean did. Lambo reveals that even though Sean is more intelligent than him, he is more prestigious than Sean, which makes him a failure. An enraged Sean replies that the reason he doesn't come for the class reunion is because of the way they all look at him. He insists he won't pressure Will or turn him into a failure. However, Will is listening in on their conversation and he decides to enter the room, but Lambo leaves immediately. Will shows Sean his hospital files, revealing how his foster parents maltreated him. It turns out Sean also faced domestic abuse from his drunk father, and he tells Will that everything he is going through is not his fault, causing Will to break down in tears. Will has a change of mind and decides to take the job Lambo wanted him to have. In his last meeting with Sean, he thanks Sean for all he did for him. Sean tells Will that he would be traveling a lot and gives him his phone number if he ever needs his help on Will's 21st birthday. His friends build him a car so he can go to work on his own. While Sean clears his office, Lambo comes to him, and they reconcile. They go out for a drink, and Sean promises to attend the next class reunion. While Sean is packing, Will drives to Sean's home and drops him a letter, but leaves just before Sean comes down. Meanwhile, Chucky and the other friends stop at Will's home to pick him up for work, and Chucky is so excited to find out that Will is gone.